Day 862 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 548,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,110 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 10 tanks, 11 APVs, and 54 artillery. Then we'll head straight into the map today, into Russia, as Ukrainian forces launched drone attacks on Russia's Krasnodar and Rostov regions overnight, targeting critical infrastructure. For instance, in Krasnodar's Primorsko region, drones struck an electrical substation, causing power and water outages. Then in the Rostov Oblast, Russian officials claimed air defenses intercepted 10 drones, but the attack still resulted in a large landscape fire on the left bank of the Rostov-on-Don city, with these strikes being part of Ukraine's ongoing campaign targeting Russian oil infrastructure and military assets, with similar attacks increasing in the region since spring. Then also, just an hour ago in Rostov, a Russian Mi-28 helicopter has just fallen from grace and from the air, with authorities stating that it just landed, quote unquote, and that the grass underneath caught fire due to, quote, the high engine temperature. Never mind the landing skids all helicopters have, designed to land safely and soundly. Although the full picture was conveniently blurred out, likely to obfuscate the reality that would help provide a better damage assessment. Local residents wrote on Telegram that the Russian Mi-28 helicopter collided with a Ukrainian drone. And stranger things have happened, but I'm on the fence with this one, as it's just as likely to be caused by lack of sufficient maintenance on the aircraft. Then also within Russia, and just later yesterday, Ukrainian military intelligence reportedly launched a drone attack on a major Russian gunpowder plant in Kotovsk, in the Tambov Oblast. And this such facility, one of Russia's largest ammunition manufacturers, has increased production by a third since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. And while a Ukrainian source claimed that the plant was hit, Tambov's governor stated the air defenses in the region intercepted 2 drones, reporting no casualties or damage. And yet, this marks the third reported Ukrainian drone strike on this facility since November of 2023, as part of Ukraine's ongoing campaign targeting Russian military assets and industrial sites. So although there is conflicting reports with this latest incident, judging by the smoke, the drones were intercepted by the building itself. Then headed across to the Ukrainian map today, as overnight, Russia again attacked with a group of drones, these Shahed drones, which appear to be losing their significance at this juncture, as they are being shot down most of the time, and in this latest instance, all 32 were shot down, mostly by mobile air defense groups. Then headed into the Kharkiv direction, as the Russian army continues to perform offensive operations, with a combined 19 combat clashes reported on both north incursion fronts in the past day. And Helaboka is still quite active, with, for instance, destroyed and burning Russian armored vehicles present after another failed attack. And this is the Russian army and wider military, with non-stop senseless attacks with no regard for the value of life of their own soldiers. Then in nearby Vovchansk, there was some advancement of the AFU to the east of the city, as Ukrainian soldiers took control of the Vovchansk-Taika road. An updated map looks more like this, which amounts to a useful gain, given that it's the only main road coming from the east into Vovchansk that is above the river. Then, somewhat as a part of these northern engagements, they're also shaving Russia's rear logistics, grouping of manpower, and various military assets as well. Then headed all the way to the largely occupied south bank of the Dnipro River in Kherson, as intense wildfires have broken out near Russian equipment and ammunition storage sites in the forested areas, as confirmed by footage and NASA firms' satellite data. And these fires are seemingly strategically located along Russian trenches and potential river crossing points. And now, with Russian troops being physically forced out of their positions by the fires, Ukraine could potentially execute a larger scale river crossing of the Dnipro with minimal opposition. Although the actual intentions of the Ukrainian military in this situation remain unconfirmed. Plus, it probably won't be the last we see of wildfires even in the region, with July being the hottest month of the year. And as you can see with this weather or temperature overlay, essentially the darker it is, the hotter it is. With July being the hottest month of the year, with temperatures getting well above average highs, around 30 to 40 degrees Celsius or about 85 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Then taking a look around the map, because somewhere in the east we saw a couple of destroyed Russian armored vehicles in the Avdiivka axis in the Donetsk region. Then also we saw a rather rare Russian armored 6x6 Kamaz Typhoon K MRAP which blew up on a mine. This vehicle was not used to transport soldiers and appears to be used as a radio or command vehicle. And given that these types of vehicles are typically not used in frontline assault roles, even by Russia's standards, because of their heavy and less agile and cumbersome designs, it appeared to roll over a mine somewhere in the rear. Now, there was a time where Russia was verifiably running over their own mines. But since the advent of drone carrying mines, like you see right here with this cheeky little fellow, leading to the unfriendly environment that the Russian army finds itself in at the rear now. Then also in the east, and starting off, so this photo straight up shows a destroyed Russian Supercam recon drone laid out on the field as it was getting ready for its next flight. However, just prior to that event, and in something of an ironic twist, a Ukrainian drone was capturing all of the movements of a Russian drone operator team as they moved around to redeploy their recon drone elsewhere. And doing so, as you can see right there, in a civilian vehicle as well. Oh, the irony indeed. Then headed across to some news for today. So starting out, Ukraine's monthly drone production now outdoes Russian soldier replenishment rates by a factor of 3 to 1. With Ukraine now producing 3,000 drones per day, or about 90,000 drones a month. With Russia rustling up about 30,000 soldiers per month. So all of these figures are actually quite astounding or staggering. And as for this photo, this one was snapped recently, showcasing just half a day's worth of production for Ukrainian drones, many of which are the smaller FPV variants. Just imagine when they turn into a fully autonomous army of drones. Then, in some more news, some pretty big news here. So the Central Bank of Russia plans to increase its key interest rate from 16% to 18% on July 26th. That's a whopping 200 basis points. This move aims to control inflation, which on Russia's official records reached 8.61% annually as of June 24. But realistically, most experts surveyed expected the rate hike, citing persistent domestic demand and lending growth. And as of now, the Russian central bank also now warns of prolonged high interest rates. And yet, in contrast to Russia's rising interest rates and inflation, most Western economies are experiencing a cooling trend, as central banks in the US, Europe, and other developed nations have been slowing or pausing their rate hikes as inflation shows signs of easing. Take Europe, for instance. Its inflation rate is 2.7% and expected to decrease to 2.5% in the coming month. So while Western countries are cautiously optimistic about price stability, Russia, on the other hand, continues to grapple with economic overheating and currency depreciation, necessitating further monetary tightening. Because Russia's inflation rate is well and truly into the double-digit figures by now. And some well-respected international institutions put Russia's real inflation rate at about 60%. So it's no wonder that after Russia holding a 16% reserve bank rate for 7 months or so now, they're now only moving in the direction to increase the rate, in what is clearly a further attempt to combat massive inflation. Then headed across to some Russian military mobilization blunders today, guys. So 2 in fact, maybe 3. And they all relate, so here we go. So in the first one, we see Russian cargo 300s, which is a military term used in the Russian armed forces to refer to wounded soldiers waiting outside on the ground near the drive-in strip of the Rostov hospital, waiting to get checked off again as ready for service. And they probably will be, I'm not kidding. Take, for example, these two Russian soldiers spotted somewhere on the front lines in Ukraine, noting the walking aids, which are not from recent injuries, as Russia has started forming their wounded into brigades and sending them back into assaults. Utter disgrace. Anything with a heartbeat, clearly. Of course, it was just a few days ago that I showed you footage of Russian soldiers complaining about broken hands, broken arms, and even broken legs, getting sent back off to the SMO on the special SMO bus. Because Russia needs all the manpower that it could truly get. All of which really means that Russia has now created within their own army this expectation that they continue shoveling in as many as they can back into the meat grinder, in order to maintain their own high attrition personnel status quo. They forced this requirement on themselves. And as you can see right here, on some days, it's getting pretty pathetic. Then headed across to a quick funny to round it all off today, guys. So it appears the secret as to why Russia couldn't take Kyiv in 3 days was finally revealed by Putin. Because when Putin was asked about ceasefires during a summit in Kazakhstan, he said that when Russian troops were standing near Kyiv at the onset of the full-scale invasion, Western partners requested Russia to cease hostilities. And firstly, okay, yep, I agree with that. I'm right there with you on that one, Putin. Although it wasn't so much just a request, as it was full-blown international condemnation. So Putin went on to say that the Russian military abided by this, but then he said after the Russian army stopped, the Ukrainian forces still did not. Therefore, Russia was deceived. And truly, I don't know where to start with these 4D master chess Putin narratives, because he's effectively saying that his troops went all the way to Kyiv only for Russia to have a change of heart and engage in a ceasefire, all at the request of his best buddies in the West. Oh please. Total BS. Russia was thwarted by its own incompetent logistics and unexpected Ukrainian resolve. But hey, it's always someone else's fault. That's a real leader that takes responsibility right here, folks. Interestingly, he must have clearly waited a long time to actually say this to anybody, or had a long time to come up with such nonsense like this. But amid all the convolution of excuses, he also inadvertently acknowledged his weakness against the West by simply following their instructions mid-invasion. That's some serious cope. Russia got its ass kicked. But Putin has always, and will always, save face, or attempt to save face, with his botched special military operation. That's our Putin! So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like and comment, subscribe as well, if not already. It really does boost out the channel and the message, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!